everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube, and this week we're breaking down what makes a good exit to a paddle stroke. This video may be inherently controversial in nature because it goes against some of the blanket, one word, one sentence concepts that are designed to help ultra beginner level paddlers. Once you progress through paddling to a certain point, some of these ultra basic concepts can now be elaborated on to help maximize your potential. As coaches, we need to simplify some of the tips that we give to make sure that we're cleaning up big ideas. Two of the most common ones are having a very clean catch. This is designed for paddlers not smacking and splashing water and using their paddle inefficiently at the front of a stroke. But once you get to the point that you're not slapping water anymore, you can elaborate on this idea by now utilizing the blade tip touching the water to start moving the boat and utilizing the process of putting the whole blade into the water to move the boat, as opposed to waiting and waiting and waiting until the whole blade's in the water before applying force. You effectively increase the length of the stroke tremendously. On the other side of the stroke, the exit, the simple cue is to remove the blade before it passes your hips or in front of you or whatever it is, in an attempt to prevent paddlers from scooping water behind them. Again, this is an ultra beginner mistake where we have paddlers that are taking and lifting and the water behind us and splashing all over the place. It is a loss of energy, it slows the boat, and it uses your paddle as an anchor for a moment and prevents your boat from gliding. This is applicable on the SUP, Surfski, the outrigger canoe, so we're gonna go through all of these different examples. So just like we're talking about with the catch, once you get to a certain skill level, you stop dumping a gallon of water on your back every stroke. You stop scooping and lifting all of this water at the end of the stroke because you have a good feel for your movement. Now the problem is paddlers are not unlocking and utilizing their full stroke potential because they're cutting the back 30% of their stroke out of the equation. They are terrified because, oh, if my paddle goes past my feet 1 millimeter, the boat comes to a stop and it explodes and I sink and now I have to swim back to shore. It's not that detrimental, and it can be argued that how you exit the water influences the power phase, the catch, and the overall movement of your boat so much that if you omit it, you omit the things that are making your boat move forward effectively. One of our most common analogies in understanding movement and transferring dynamic energy is throwing a punch. When we throw the punch, we set it up, rotating the body, setting up the hand behind us, and we follow through. We have this power phase that's in the middle, and the follow through at the end is equivalent to our exit. So the exit here, this by itself is not super effective for the punch, but neither is this catch phase back here. What makes the power occur is going from point A to point B and traveling through that power phase like so. If I stop at a middle point here, my transfer of energy, it starts, it powers, and I have to decelerate to stop at this point. This makes my power phase effectively much shorter as I'm stopping at the hand. The follow through is the exit. It allows your power phase to now balloon into this much larger distance. So now as I start the movement, I can have power, 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 and go all the way through before decelerating at the end. And the secret to a great exit is it is dynamic with its release from the water. So you are continuing to accelerate until the blade runs out of water to grab. So you're never going through this phase where you're going and stopping. Going and stopping. You are just constantly going all the way through before loading up for the next one. The best visual example of accelerating from the start of your stroke to the end of your stroke and having a very violent, powerful exit is using the wing blade paddle. It is designed to grab water and to effectively flush this water out. Meaning as you go through your movement, you can continue to push down onto the water and rotate and complete your motion until the blade travels through, lifts through the water from its inherent shape, and runs out of water to grab. So the tool is designed to be effective from the start to the end. Your hand pathing is going to dictate if your paddle does this. If this top hand travels diagonally and downward as I come to the side, the blade is going to operate in the way that I want it to. If my hand travels too vertical and it comes down in this orientation, now I'm going to begin scooping the paddle like this, and this is the ultra beginner mistake that we are trying to avoid. Once you get past the feeling of doing this every stroke and using your rotation to your advantage, you can turn through these strokes dynamically from the start to the end. Surfski is another sport where people are taught to make sure the blade never passes their body. And I have never, ever seen in motion a blade that does not pass the person's hip as it leaves the water. Exiting the blade before it passes your hip would physically be something like this, where we're getting through the exit and the blade is in front of me. There are no still shot frames of a blade in the air in front of the user that is going fast. And if you can find that image, they're contorted into a very weird position to try and achieve this thing. There are beginners in the world that learn these cues and start paddling in this way, and it's not effective for movement. Being bound by this very simplistic cue now plagues this paddler all the way until they quit the sport because they don't know how to move the boat effectively. A more effective cue to get the point across would be to release the power on the water by the time it reaches your hip. This is another way to alleviate scooping water behind you if you are doing that. If your catch and power, and as we get to here now, as the blade leaves the water, maybe we're letting up and releasing from that water and not driving all the way through that movement. Saying to remove the blade before it reaches your hip, these are very concrete ideas, and I can't get to this point unless I start exiting way up here in the front to get the blade next to me. If I turn to the maximum that my hips allow, the blade is next to me, and as it exits the water, it will pass me. And that is perfectly fine. There are thousands and thousands of screenshots I have of paddlers that advocate for the blade to not pass their body with the blade behind them on every single stroke. We've talked about this concept with the outrigger paddles in the past, that the whole point of having a double bend is to give you a cranking mechanic at the end of the stroke. So the end of the stroke, as my top hand is down, I can push a little bit more, and you can see this blade is wanting to lift a little water behind me. None of these concepts I have invented. It is all from watching other paddlers and seeing what they're doing to be successful. They may teach and say one concept, but when they physically do another concept, that's the thing that I'm interested in. So in this case, having the top hand driving all the way down puts the blade behind us. What paddlers do that? Look at any top canoe paddler, and their top hand almost always goes all the way to their knee, unless they're in a sprinting high stakes scenario. Then this top hand is going to leave a little sooner. Unlocking a full stroke is the key to that. Looking at Shelva'a, one of the things that makes them look so dynamic in the 6-person canoe is everybody's top hand goes all the way down almost every time. Fast racers utilizing their double bend paddles are finding that extra pressure at the end of the stroke, signified again by splashing off of the exit. You will watch paddlers throwing water almost every single stroke thanks to the angles that they are using. So one of the worst offenders to all of these concepts and ideologies are SUP paddlers. It's easy to see this within the community because most paddlers that have started in a short amount of time have not risen to a very high level yet, right? Again, watching them bound by arbitrary movement laws is really hindering their progress, and the people that are beating them do not adhere to these same rules. Taking the blade out at your feet only is effective if you are prepared to paddle at 60 strokes or higher per minute and you have the front part of your stroke mastered. Talking about length in the water, your ability to grab a tremendous amount of force using every muscle and leverage to your advantage to go through this motion, using your hips to rotate, pushing your weight down onto the water to utilize your body weight. Only then do you have enough force to allow the blade to come out at your feet to be effective to keep. And again, the stroke rate must occur every second to maintain that. Now, if the blade passes your feet, you have this power phase that is now elongated for potentially double the length, which is a tremendous amount of breathing room for people that do not have the front part of their stroke mastered. Again, for 99% of racers, this is not applicable. We don't have a front stroke that is able to carry us to a point where we should remove the blade urgently. It is a super simple tip designed for SUP instructors to send a video to people renting paddle boards so they don't scoop water behind them or have the blade go all the way to the tail. But having the blade leave a foot or two behind you is perfectly fine. SUP paddlers are some of the most stubborn. They watch video of me paddling and they're like, well, that's not right. You're not going fast. I'm literally going 10 kilometers per hour in that as a long distance pacing video, right? But they don't understand what they're seeing because in their mind, there's a video that said you're not supposed to do this and it doesn't work. Even when shown the reality of other professional racers paddling in the same way, going speeds that they are unable to do, they still want to argue. Excellent. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the website. We have the podcast coming out every Monday. If you have anybody that you know that would like to be on the show talking about paddling and growing the sport, make sure to have them contact me via my email in the description link. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing here without the support from all of you. So thank you again. We'll see you guys next week for our next paddling tip.